48 years ago, a young fresh law graduate, ANM Ousainou DARBOE, entered the legal arena for what would become one of the Gambia's most successful legal practices. This film takes you on an intimate tour of his humble beginning.
Now see, this was the bed DARBOE Kemo used to lie on.
His simplicity and kindness.
A lot of the time, we do these cases for free. You know why? Because DARBOE would be very shy to ask anybody to pay anything.
Comme da nga ñu won ko ne ko amulo, comme like ñu la niwal doole waye amulo. Ñu lak la de gëna sawar. Dina la kisal, dina la fayal filing fees.
Ousainou mu loyalty a darjata la loyaya to anyanta kodo men soto la ma soto. Hinante yakam.
We'll go on an in-depth exploration of his contribution to the Gambian jurisprudence.
I used to admire him because he was somebody who was going to court and achieving results, outcomes that are positive.
When he produced the document, wanted to tell that, I rose up to take objection. My objection was upheld, and I said, Alhamdulillah. That deflated casualty.
In every sphere and aspect of the law, DARBOE's contribution is there.
All of a sudden, Ousainou was to say, and the lawyer said, no, I'm speaking. Normally, when one is up, the other one should sit down. Then when he rose, he said, no, I'm speaking. He said, no, listen to me first. Then he gave that lawyer 5 cases, names of 5 cases, and the rulings, the ratio they said then for the lawyer to use against him. Not many lawyers can do that.
We'll look at his selflessness and tenacity in the face of adversity.
He has nerves of steel. Nothing can scare him.
When Ousainou was going into politics, he prepared us. He told us that he was expecting death. He was expecting life imprisonment. He could even be maimed.
ANM papa di kumandi. Nga solo dimbayal karafalma. That's what he said to us. Nga solo na dimbayal karafalma.
When I called Nafi direct and then Nafi answered, she was like, Jojo, they put in Baba in the truck, they put in, and she could see it. She was standing there on the phone, and the next minute the phone just went off. It was off.
When the judge made the judgment that the family can go visit, we tried to go visit. I'm telling lawyer Nene Cham that 4 mile to Bundato, and they said, well, even though the court gave the order, they had no order from the top, so they wouldn't let any family. So when because I know my dad was old at the time, I'm not sure if I was ever gonna see him again. So that was very emotional for me.
And we'll explore why he enjoys a tidal wave of support as a politician. On August 8, 1948, the village of DARBOE in Niani, in what is today known as the Central River region, produced one of its most industrious sons, a gift to the Gambia.
There are 3 houses. The main house is the one in the middle, and we call it Bumba. That is the big house. That is the house where the founder of this village, DARBOE Kemo, lived. This is where he brought up his family. The other building, the 3rd house, is what used to be called Rafanding Kunda. That is the village, that house where DARBOE Kemo's own son, or in fact, the son of his brother,
The founder of this picturesque village and Ousainou's great-grandfather, DARBOE Kemo, was a prominent Islamic scholar. He drummed the idea of the search for knowledge into the ears of every child born here during his time. To nurture that legacy, he named the village Karang Bantang, or the citadel of knowledge. And from a tender age, Ousainou embraced that value and the culture of his people.
This is where we would get shrubs, small pieces of wood from the forest or from the bush, burn it here. And when we put it in place, from a distance, you can see smoke and you can see fire. That's where we surrounded this, and this is the Karanta. Here's the Karanta bar. Several of us would sit around this Karanta, recite the Quran. Depending on what level you are, some would have the actual paper, the actual text book of the Quran. Others would have what we call the wala, and they would sit here, we would all sit here and read Quran. And indeed, at a very early age, I really mastered the Quran. I think I finished the Quran at least 3 times before I was 10 years old.
Hussein, utumo, mulika karanje wol siya bata tafi. Utumo mtebe do yari walale bembu. Ndindim man katira karana walale. Barwo tembo na hakilo mamba atela kuolku. Utumo ya ate dundi tuwab karantu asata bansang ka karam kije ni wikino sita asinaja. Ni lifo fana sita asinaja. Ate alkurano bang utumo abedo arim bat alfal ka fo nyame. Ko mo man soto jang do bo jang. Pirin kata do bo kemo wala. Kana bulan ntolula. Mei si alkurano bang atara ko itela siyo do tembo e kama soto do bo kemo la fenko kona a folota yaji atele. Alfali utumo ko fo nyala. Ning anata o karanta dinding be atel ka bula be no maka be karandi killing fay mo be ba melbe alqur'ano karanka alqur'ano be melbul asibula ilo alqur'ano ta abol fanan karandi la ta ko siyata ta bati.
See, this was the bed DARBOE Kemo used to lie on. It was made of mud.
Ousainou has very fond memories growing up in the dusty streets and bushy fields of DARBOE among his extended family and friends, a childhood centered around community life, trust and love, shared happiness and contentedness.
I really remember going to the bush to fetch firewood. I also remember taking the goats and the sheep for grazing.
India bimbete mabutumodo nata ya mbaya nintaya nata mbaya nata ya beya ola manga mo sangar lindi amanga mo nganyangedi amanga mo di shaba ko amang horma sura bu mal wulti amang puto fanando
Useni kabirim balolli ay kulo folo ana mina kewa baran o malaji ko polot fulan jam biray moya kamali ayalon ko nyante mulekela saate wal dafa ko doro ba ko la dafa ko abole noma manin kunta yalo manin tapale yalo manin fan ya polo manin sunyar lo
sheni nadni yakon bindindi mo kendolem mo sebolem bindindi man chakano long ndungu shenu amen kanu afa bindi no ni ya wato kono amen kanu afaye.
At the latter part of his childhood, Ousainou left DARBOE for the town of Bantang across the river for his primary education. There, he had another wonderful experience filled with warmth and happiness among his family and friends who recall the Ousainou they knew back in the days.
Kuluta jan
are nane ne manku jote ba nyama tronga buka ani mo buka ni ge fem pa ya fo ya mo kulurin ba
dafa oyofon waaye ni nga xamoon ne nag borom xam-xam la dana du mer te li muy wax daf koy xam.
From Bansang, Ousainou moved to Banjul to attend St. Augustine's High School. There, he found a new home in the house of veteran politician P.S. Njai in 19 Boku Street. Njai was known for hosting students from every region of the country, especially rural Gambia, and paying their tuition fees at the time.
Politics then was really creeping into the provinces because the franchise had been extended to the provinces. P.S. Njai had a lot of support from Salum. So a lot of people were coming from Salum and some from Badibus. So it was a really crowded place, really, really crowded. Sometimes, when you come from school, you find that, some visitors have come from some part of the country and they have to eat, So they are giving, they're giving you a lunch.
Ousainou fanda stew Njai kunda PSA molon dal molon momi alon ko dal ha nim momi hakilo to de si boy kasila Ousainou man problem soto ane nim mo man fen ka Ousainou kile ndana la broda mo dabo te le kuliyata may ko kon te le siyata de yamay ka Ousainou kile la ba la plastique jam akaduma le fo ay futation nim mo daw ko arata after ya ko karete l'intente oto bebi daga school asita abuka fani abuka pono no abuka fani abina ba fa la sila do fa nan ba ngo du kare tanye gulos saba etaje kare ya ka te l'intente he'll go abuka sifa abuka ni complete etaje la nyala do fana.
My brother would send me on errands, and the old man himself, I believe he had much more confidence in me, and I think he liked me more than any of them. So when he when he wanted Dettol, when he wanted anything, it will be Ousainou DARBOE.
In 1969, Ousainou obtained a scholarship to study law at the University of Lagos, or UNILAG in Nigeria.
I was the first Gambian to be at the University of Lagos, and before I could really acclimatize myself to the surroundings, it took maybe about 2 or 3 weeks. First thing, my first day in the dining hall was Gary. And I said, look, I cannot eat this. And I asked the matron to really give me curry uncooked. I would put sugar on it and eat that. And you find it very strange. But after, amala, this thing, I used to enjoy it, and pounded yam. Moi, and my first time I ate snail, but when I was told it was snail, I just started thinking about what snail with its shell, and I said, oh no, my God, I cannot eat that, but when I tasted it, just looked like kidney. I enjoyed it. And I made a lot of friends. In fact, Christmas holiday and Easter holidays, my friends would take me to their homes, outside of Lagos.
After obtaining his Bachelor of Laws, or LLB degree in 1972, Ousainou proceeded to Nigeria's Federal Law School for his BL program. In 1973, he became the first Gambian to be called to the Nigerian bar and was enrolled as a practitioner of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. But he returned to the Gambia the same year to work with the Ministry of Justice as public prosecutor.
There were only 2 other law officers, that is the Registrar General and the Solicitor General. I was the 3rd. So there were only 3 law officers, and I was really doing all the running around. Coming to the provinces to prosecute, go to the courts in the Kanifi, in Banjul to prosecute, And in Banjul, when we are doing prosecution in Banjul, you know, people used to come to watch, because then Jayasin and Ousainou Darboe on the opposite side, Pap Jayasin and Ousainou Darboe on the opposite side, you know, was quite entertaining to the public, because all of us, we were young, you know, young people, you know, the way we think, you know.
Well, Ousainou is senior to me, actually, in terms of age, at least 7 years or so. And it was in the late 70s when Ousainou was a young lawyer. And I was also a young man, actually, and I used to admire him because he was somebody who was going to court and achieving results, you know, outcomes that are positive, meaning his clients were winning. And, you know, his name was very popular in the country.
Ousainou would rise through the ranks to become state counsel, registrar of companies, curator of interstate estates, and legislative draftsman. In 1977, he went to the University of Ottawa in Canada, where he obtained his Master of Laws, or LLM, degree 2 years later. In May 1980, he resigned from public service and established a private law practice under the name Basangsang Chambers.
In 1980, I was still in the judiciary, then as Master of the High Court. Mr. Darboe himself was then Principal State Counsel. But I don't know how you would describe it. As it so happened, we both left the service at the same time in 1980. And also, by coincidence, we both went into private practice in the same month of the same year, in October 1980. We set up our different chambers.
Antuman and Ousainou would immediately become partners and brothers, jointly taking up cases and defending the same clients on a regular basis.
The thing is before you can associate with anybody, in my view, you have to be of like mind. Mr. Darboe and I, even though we came from totally different backgrounds, somehow Allah brought us together and we became associates. We collaborated on a lot of cases at the time in the 80s onwards, until in fact one of the judges gave us a name that whenever we two appear, he would say, oh, this is the old farm of Darboe and Gay appearing again. So we became more like big brother, young brother, rather than partners. Our association went beyond the professional aspect of it.
By the end of 1980, Ousainou the lawyer was a son on the rise. While he was gaining fame as a human rights lawyer in the courtroom for successfully defending especially the poor and the downtrodden, he also dedicated himself to his young family and his friends outside the courtroom.
Growing up being the only boy of the family, and given the fact that I was named after his beloved father, Numukunda Darboe, I was special to him, I guess, and I guess was able to get stuff from him that I wanted. Just using that relationship of Numukunda Darboe. Otherwise, he made sure we had everything that we needed.
I was born exactly the same day my father died, and my sister fondly tells me, it's like when I was born, my mom sent her to go deliver the message to my dad, who was at the hospital at that time. And then she said when she delivered the message to him, he just had some blessings for me. And I think a couple hours or 3 hours later, that's when he passed away. So I never got to see him, and he never got to see me. So Lawyer Ousainou Darboe was the only father figure we know in the Gambia, because he was the one that was present there. So everything that a father did for his children, he did that for most of us.
Ousainou has been a very good husband to us, and he's been a very good dad to our kids. He's always been there for them. He provides whatever they want. And he always makes sure that both the wives and the kids are happy at all times.
Very caring, always made sure we had the best, but at the same time, he ensured that we were grounded. Obviously, he was one of the most successful lawyers in Gambia, but he also made sure that, like I said, that we were grounded. So going to studies, he will make sure we walk home. A driver, Basolo, could have picked us up, but no, we had to walk home from Mrs. Ndau, the ex-peoples, that's where I was, to Pipeline. He always, made sure that we were always occupied. He would send us to Sapo, because Papa MM was working at Sapo, so we'll go to Sapo, explore Sapo, then Bansang and Dobo. But I think one thing that was very important to him, that he made sure all his kids was family. As you know, he doesn't have a lot of biological kids, but he has a lot of extended family. And when we were kids, I used to be angry with him because every holiday, Easter, Christmas, summer, by force, Dobo and Bansang.
Ousainou nekk na papa joo xam ne dafa emale doomam yi ñi nga xam ne moo leen jur ak ñim jurut ñëpp la boole emale soo ko fekkee si kër fu mu nekkee ak doomam yeeg xale yim yar ak ñeneen dangaa ne déedéet doo xam kanaay kan nekk na papa ju am yërmande nekk na papa joo xam ne bugut pour gis doomam buga dara mbaa mu nekk si dara loo xam ne dafa soxla ndimbal munut ko koo defal.
Several times, actually, we met at Bakau and we used to sit together. But then they were all my seniors, himself, Dr. Boro Suso, Dr. Serif Sise, in particular. Then Ousainou and I and Boro and Dr. Sise used to be in the same car, moving around different parts of the country, from Bansang to Jara, to Nyani, where Dr. Sise also came from. And we even went out of the country to different parts of Senegal, Mauritania, Casamas also.
Kari wo kari, waran kari fula wo kari fula. Asimbe invite ya. Ay tabiri bake, ay lonna kilin kumandi, nga tinyanje birin somanda folan sara suma, boda akabendi maasole fede nyoboringo diata ate ya diata ntolbe. Ni la kurata woto nganna domorol ka ngamin fengol bemi, ngambulo ku ngabula na motola ngata nyoboringola. Ida betikania waran bundu aren babu mfati.
Back in the courtroom, Ousainou's biggest opportunity as a lawyer came in 1981 in the aftermath of a failed coup led by Kukoy Samba Sanyang against President Sir Dawda Jawara and his PPP government. Opposition leader Sheriff Mustafa Diba was arrested along with members of the National Convention Party, NCP.
The leader of the failed coup was Kukoy Samba Sanyang, who happened to be NCP candidate for Fonyi East. There was this suspicion around the NCP people that they may have a hand in this.
The insurgency or mutiny having been quelled, there were a lot of arrests. And those that were really taken for trial, I defended most of them, including my young brother, Momoturo Dabo. I defended them. But then, Sheriff's case, because Solo Dabo was mentioned in the indictment as being a conspirator, that Kukoy Samba Sanyang, Sheriff Mustafa Diba, so and so, conspired with Kukoy Samba Sanyang and Solo Dabo, to overthrow the government of the Gambia, and then they gave all their particulars.
When news was received that Sheriff was to face court, so some of senior members of the NCP, particularly Solo Dabo, who was also influential and one of the financiers, they were thinking of going to London to hire the services of Barton Macaulay, a Sierra Leonean who was then QC, Queen's Counsel lawyer, who was based in London.
Solo was friends with Batan Macaulay. He really thought that this case was such a high-profile case that he needed to really get a QC. At least psychologically, maybe that would be, the prosecution will find that challenging, the government of Gambia will find that challenging. He spoke to me about it, but I told him that, well, Uncle, I think you are really losing hope. I think you are getting in a state of desperation. Why should you go to UK to get a lawyer to defend Sheriff Diba in this matter? I would take up the case with my friend Antman Gay. And in fact, we will not ask for fees. So Antman Gay and I have virtually set up an informal human rights defendant institution. We go in for, where there is abuse of human rights, we go in pro bono. He agreed, although very reluctantly.
Sadauda, being the Democrat he was, he vowed that all those people who were arrested, he was going to make sure that they were given a fair trial and hearing. He imported judges, lawyers, judges to preside over cases, and lawyers to prosecute cases. And he said he was not going to allow any Gambian to be a prosecutor. So those judges, one came from England, the rest came from Sierra Leone, Nigeria, and Ghana. The Gambian participation was to defend those who are charged.
No kit you be carrying, do not continue back. I don't tell them what a messenger to the courthouse, kana officer. E kan ki munela kan ki bukol tala, otum mo lan man karang, bal bukol meni to solo ta melula, ngol bol bukol konole. Bolum 2, bolum 3, kana la lo bukolo, Nigeria la lo bukolo, ni to salta men, ya fa sita ko man nganatina.
We used to be in my dingy office in Cameroon Street up to midnight. And Alhamdulillah, I remember Kozwansi, a very experienced lawyer. He was Attorney General in Ghana under Kwame Nkrumah. Yeah. He was brought in to prosecute, especially brought in to prosecute Sheriff Diba, and he had one Mr. Thompson, an English lawyer, as his junior. And they had laid out their plans on Sheriff Diba, that how much he was opposing Sadauda in the cabinet, when things come up, and they wanted to bring in the cabinet papers. And then, when they attempted it, straight away, we knew where he was going. We whispered to each other, and said, look, this is where this case is going to collapse. And when he produced the document, wanted to tell that, I rose up to take objection. My objection was upheld. And I said, Alhamdulillah. That deflated Kozwansi. And understand my koto Antuma is a very humorous person. Just tell Mako, my melon nat butoy. You can look at him. He looks like a guinea fowl that is a soaked guinea fowl, because the way he was going up and down. You know where guinea fowl that, how they just there.
There were 53 witnesses arranged against Sheriff Mustafa Diba. Darboe won the case. Gratis. He refused to be given a truth.
When the judge pronounced judgment, the state prosecutor, Kozwansi, he congratulated us, particularly Mr. Darboe, for the sort of work. He said he never realized, he didn't think there were lawyers of that quality in the Gambia. I cannot describe to you the jubilation that took place in court.
After the 1981 trial, Ousainou became a star lawyer and a household name in the country, alongside Antuman. Together, they appeared before the court week in and week out, defending clients, showing a great deal of generosity, selflessness, and service to humanity along the way.
Kesi sam, lu bari ci kesi sami. du daan charge fees because dangaa ñëw am yenay sax man dama daan lifin sax comme dangaa ñëw won ko ne ko amuloo comme like ñu ngi la néewal doole waaye amuloo yooyu lak la dee gën a sawar dina la kiisal dina la fayal filing fees maa ngi fàttaliku du ma tudda tur am na benn waay dañ ko daaxoon liggéeyu kaayam li nga kooku bi mu ñëwee su daan ñëw koot comme su ñëwee koot nii war a delsi beneen koot moo ko dee jox paas pour kooku ñëw koot mu win keesam bi ñu compensate ko kooku foo naa kera bi mu ñëwee ba jël cegam bi si lañ ko géej a gis yooyu noonu yu baree xam nga du ma tudda turi nit ñi dafa bari.
I see it, and Mr. Darboe saw it as serving the public. That was why, for very, very many years, you will not come to our chambers or go to Mr. Darboe's chambers and be asked what we call consultation fee. No, we never charge that. And in fact, not only consultation fee, but actual legal fees as well. If I tell you the people who owe us legal fees, which are still unpaid, you will be surprised.
He will come home and he had benches at home for people to see. You come at home around, Maghrib time, when we pray Maghrib, you'll see people lined up sitting on benches at home waiting for him. Those are clients that want to have consultation with him. So work continued from office to the home. So it's a hard worker. And then he would bring home multiple books. And sometimes they will ask us to wake him up, after we study, because the high school students, we study and then go to bed. And he's like, when you're going to bed, can you wake me up? That's when we wake him up and he will study. He studied probably more than us in high school. He was a lawyer. He was a seasoned lawyer already, but he had several books, several cases. He read it. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was one of the most successful lawyers. I don't think many lawyers did that. He studied hard.
By the late 80s towards early 90s, Ousainou's courtroom excellence and impressive outcomes had earned him enormous confidence and respect. His intense cross-examination of prosecution's witnesses and ability to capture the attention of judges and magistrates to believe in his client's innocence helped propel him to national stardom. Thanks to these attributes, he became the retained lawyer for many successful Lebanese businesses in the country. In the public sphere, he was hired as retained lawyer by multiple parastatals. Among them, the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation, the Central Bank of the Gambia Livestock Marketing Board, Gambia Airways, the Gambia Public Transport Corporation, and the Gambia Telecommunications Company Limited, GAMTEL. In fact, he incorporated GAMTEL, drafting all the instruments for the transfer of the assets of the cable and wireless to the telecoms company.
1987, I moved to the Gambia Public Transport Corporation. But before I moved to the Gambia Public Transport Corporation, in 1984-85, I was also the chairman of GAMTEL. We started GAMTEL together. I was the first chairman, and then you had Bakari Njai as general manager. And Ousainou, because there were fewer lawyers in the Gambia, he had moved to private practice, by the way, private lawyers, and he was actually the lawyer for GAMTEL. He was the lawyer for Livestock Marketing Board, where I was managing director. And even GPTC, he was one of, the lawyers, corporate lawyers. He performed exceedingly well, all along. He was not selected because he was a friend. He was selected because of his professional, excellence in delivering, cases, meaning exactly in winning cases, that actually we passed over to him.
We have no plans to stay long. All we are here for is to set a just system and to put up structures that will ensure that what happened in the past 30 years will never happen.
In the late 1996, 2 years after the military coup that brought Yahya Jammeh to power, a group of Gambians approached the popular Ousainou to lead a new opposition party against Jammeh. There was looming dictatorship, and the three main political parties PPP, NCP, and Gambia's People's Party GPP were banned through a decree by the AFPRC military junta.
Senior members across these three political parties came together and discuss as to the way out. Then one gentleman came with a suggestion there. He had a proposal. Now this is a gentleman who is currently not here, that he went to America for the Olympic Games, to watch the Olympic Games, and that was Ousainou Darboe.
I was in Atlanta attending the Olympic Games, and I do not know how a gentleman called Alaisio Kante, we commonly call him Job Kante. I don't know how he got the telephone number of the hotel. I was living Marriott Hotel. I was living in, he, by phone rang, I picked it up, and started say, "Hey, Ousainou, how are you doing? It's me, Ala Job Kante." Well, people have got together, and we and other people have got together, and we are forming a party. We want you to lead the party. I said, please, cut it out. I want to concentrate on my practice. I want to continue helping my people. I said, please, leave me alone.
And I guess 96, I was young. I think I was like 13 years at the time. So Natalie Natanu, we came on a trip to the Olympics. I was with him in Atlanta in 96 that summer. So during Kolbekelang, I didn't really know what was going on. He never really discussed anything with me. So I just came for my holidays, spent some time at the Olympics. Then I intended to come again in America to spend the rest of the summer. So I came to Gambia.
He was here for the Olympics. So we all met at our older brother's house, whom I told you about, Dr. Darboe in Maryland. That's when he broke the news to all of us as family gathering.
When I came back in August, by Maghrib time, can't remember the first name, but he used to live in Kanifing. It's from Jara, a Mr. Jajusi. He came to my residence, then I was living in Kanifing, and said that, well, you should expect people visiting you, because we want a leader. And my response was, please leave me alone. And 2 days after, one of my friends, Dr. Sise, this also about Maghrib time, he came to our VU in Bakau and said, look, I think you should be honest with people. If you are not going to accept responsibility, tell them that I'm not accepting, I'm declining, so that people can move on and get some other person. And then I started to think there must be some seriousness in these approaches. And the following day, a group of people came on, including Keba Tambajame, Jallo Sane, Abu Karamba Kasama, and I recall also, I think Abu Karamba Kasama was there, Majankosa and Sidi Jaude. I remember them. And they came out and said this was what they wanted, that their leaders had met, Hassan Musa, Sheriff Diba, and of course Saudada was also in contact and thought that they should really approach me to be to lead this party.
Ousainou asked the group to give him time to consult his family both in the Gambia and abroad before taking any decision.
pour dem waxtaani jeeg magam ñeeg kilifaam yi nekk foofu noonu man dama soonoon because dafa am yenn paa yoo xam ne dañ ma daan kool yenn suba teel ana Ousainou ñu ne dafa tukki ñëwagut ma ne déedéet ñëwagut dimbale ñu nga koolal ñu ko nga wax ko ne na ñëw léegi li moo mun di def foofu na ko bàyyi ñëw déglu suñu wax ji jàppa suñu yoon biñ ko xelal pour ñu mun ñoo génne ci liñ bugg a génn su ko defee ma ne waaw dinaa wax.
I was not in the Gambia. I was in the United States of America, and he joined me there to inform me officially of his decision. And to be honest with you, I never wanted politics, and he knew that. So he came, he said, Maya, I'm sorry, but the Gambian people have interest in me to lead the United Democratic Party, and it is time that somebody has to sacrifice for our children and our grandchildren. So I told him, Ousainou, even though I don't like politics, you have supported me all my life in whatever I wanted to do until I achieved that goal. So I am behind you. I will give you all the support I can until whatever God decides in the end.
I was in the US when he came, so he informed us, and I think I was about 20 at that time, but still a kid, so I was really excited because it's like we're going to State House. You know, the State House, that's nice, you know, without thinking of the consequences. Then he sat us down, the few of us that were in Maryland at that time, and said, it's good to be excited, but this is not going to be easy. This is a military, and I could be killed. I never knew what maimed was at that time, but he said I could be killed, maimed, murdered, or imprisoned. He said, you guys have to be ready for that. But it was too abstract, honestly, at that time, because the fight had not begun.
I came first to hear, saw my mother. I told her, well, this is what I've been asked to do. Governments have approached me, you know. And I don't want to say anything without consulting you. As he said, well, since Gambians have confidence in you, you have my blessing. Go. God will protect you. Gambian ko lejikdela, yela jikota ya dela. Da, yamfata. Adu alasi kanta. I went to Bansang also, and spoke to my uncle, Kambrama. He also said, look, if out of all these people in the Gambia, you have been approached, why should you decline that? Please, go ahead and accept it. But before then, when I was coming down here, I met a gentleman, or a gentleman bumped into me in summer. I was filling my gas, my vehicle. He came on a motorbike. He was very, with big beard. He stopped by, looked at me for a little while and said, you are Ousainou Darboe? I said, yes. He was speaking to me in Mandinka. And he said, please, don't disappoint us. Please, don't disappoint us. Please, don't disappoint us. 3 times. And his tears started rolling down. That really impacted on me. And then, with the approval by my mother, that really gave me the elan.
Wolun suto bringa nata fanang ntele mo foloti ay min kumandi bunk otum kat suto lem na wulta nana da fo nyin korda kono jangotumo alaji bokora wala mansa kewoti e wala alkaloti bringa wala bunda konkon ko kota ko kayra dolon non kayra dolon no Ousainou kay ko banko moli en tombonde e ko jikke yen tombon ase pressure pour banko la ko kamala so nada wo sarole la akay ko mbe ko ma sin en banko be tembo minto londo min bete bulu amma nyanna wesla ngalon ko nim banko mboli yete tombon fu ala yete ke president ni banko kan woto de be mol nyaada fitalale.
So he came and told them, well, I'm okay, I'm acceptable now. So this is how this man became a politician. Politics went into Ousainou, he did not go into politics.
Katu killing ala fon sonta ujusula kan wen ku bondi bari bisilari mbake no nati fana yem fel no ngata betala fula a fanju ba a fango kumbota tumo men ke kilinten tul kono men man nyajo jolongulu nga kadu nga force to dundi kulata man laf men Ousainou was the wealthiest lawyer in this country nde nsi fem fo no ejel anin sinte a kennente ana fulundi kodo babul a firinta baki anda hinante yata law firgo soto kam.
And we started then working on the documents properly. This gentleman, Bemba Tamedo, was there, Sidia Sanya. And with my current secretary, Fatu.
There were times when, the security aspect or atmosphere in the country at the time was a bit dicey. Not many people were prepared to come out openly, in support of the party. So we were a few brave ones, I would say. Sidia Sanyang, in whose house the first meetings to set up the UDP were held in Pipeline, and Bolong Sonko, who was also a member of the UDP at the beginning, and a few other people like Fabus, who had a stationery shop in Banjul, and Fat Nyang, who was the typist at the time. And our work was to develop the new manifesto and the party constitution. And we worked tirelessly in a couple of weeks, to do that.
Nda inte kumandila, inte prepare. Akonye serang kainam, akonye ni dul fatatal. Yal nte kandita damanding dul nyelde. Akonye ko mbeduna politiko kon, akonye mo sineng mfisi atamiti. Sikumayo mimanken song tefang badala beta. Adumala fale mo jabi.
As usual, doing our cases, and then one day we were upstairs by the library. We were standing waiting for our case to be called, and he came to me and he said, I could see he was in a very somber mood. He said to me, "Look, I have something to tell you." I said, "What? What is that?" He said, "I have decided to go into politics." Just like that. That's how he told me, in court, So that's the man. He's a very simple, unassuming guy.
mu ngi dugg ci politique 1996 fekk ñu ngi dem school tek njabootam xamal ñu ne moom mooy politique suñ demee school buñ xuloo buñ saaga lu ko waay wax rek baax na te xam ne moom mooy politique ñu seen kilifay politique guñ.
Nobody was willing and ready to contest Yaya Jammeh. You had one person like him who was willing and ready to sacrifice everything, to contest for the betterment of the Gambia as a whole.
On August 23, 1996, the new party, the United Democratic Party, or UDP, was officially launched. There was widespread fear and chaos in the country, triggered by escalating dictatorship. There was already a reign of terror, and the ethical and moral fabric of the Gambia society was being stretched to a breaking point. The people galvanized, put their hopes in UDP to get the country back on track. The September election was fast approaching, and the people were fired up, resulting to huge crowds at UDP rallies across the country.
We are ordinary citizens, ordinary folks. We have nothing to intimidate people. Absolutely not.
You didn't reply me about the first question. What are your chances?
My chances?
Yes.
I don't know whether I should use the Latin word res ipsa loquitur,
But can you,
if you look outside there, and this is just from the greater Banjul area, not from other parts of the country.
But that wasn't enough to stop the dictatorship. Ousainou lost to Jammeh in an election widely condemned as flawed because of the absence of a level playing field. Ousainu's new status as opposition leader was met with scoffing disdain by Jammeh. It wouldn't take long before his regime hit the UDP leader where it felt it would hurt the most, his pocket. The authorities compelled government institutions that retained him as lawyer to pull the plug. Many individual clients were also either intimidated into abandoning him or they voluntarily turned their back on him out of fear.
I had been defending people before the commissions, the PPP ministers, when Bakar Njai, and others were taken before the commission. And for Gamtel, I didn't appear for Bakar Njai, but I was appearing for Gamtel. It was the William Commission. Because I was defending Gamtel and my client. And it was for Gamtel's interest that I was seeking. But they thought that I was really siding with Bakar Njai. And when I was, Bakar Njai called me and said, "Look, I'm sorry. I've been instructed to take away the retainers from your." I said, "Well, thank God." And Social Security also, they also took away their retainer. Gambia Airways, EPTC, Continent Bank, which I had formed as the lawyer, also a retainership was taken from me.
So losing all of those, and then even clients started running away from the office because people don't want to be seen affiliated with Lawyer Darboe because of politics.
I must here pay tribute to one or two of those people that in spite of all the intimidation, all the harassment, they stood by Mr. Darboe. One of them is the late Faiz Mahmoud. His shop was in Wellington Street, in the premises where Mr. Darboe had his chambers, 1819 Wellington Street. People go to him, tell him all these things. He said, "Look, me, I don't care. He's my lawyer, he's my lawyer." That's Faiz Mahmoud. The other people are the Diab family, of course. Raif Diab, he's late now, and the other brother, Ahmed. Those are people, these are genuine people who stood by Mr. Darboe through thick and thin.
On the political front, the Gambia was very much under a full-blown dictatorship by the end of 1996, and Jammeh had ticked all the boxes in dictator checklist. In what international human rights group said was one of Africa's most notorious dictatorships, the regime used violence to suppress dissent and hound dissenters, a chilling brutality against UDP in particular. State-sponsored disappearances, arbitrary arrests, and torture targeted at UDP militants were common. Among the victims, prominent members Wassa Jane, the late Shingo Nyasi, and the late Femi Peters.
I told Shingulu, let's be ready, because at this time of the night, don't expect that we are going to be released. Let's expect anything. And at that time, we were ready for anything. It could be death, it could be anything. So they took us out, and then that was the time they started torturing us at the back of the NIA. Daba Marena was the torturing, organizing official. We were severely tortured.
They were arrested together with about 7 people for holding a political rally. We could not trace his whereabouts for quite a while. I could vividly remember those days when my mom and my sisters will be running over police stations to look for his whereabouts.
The government has no respect for human rights. The government continues to violate the human rights like the way you violate, some of us violate the 10 Commandments. You understand? It's a habit. It's not only a habit, it's a practice.
2 arrests. The first was in 2010, and this was like Good Friday. That pained him. He took the personal because he told me they arrested him, I think, the day before Good Friday. So he couldn't perform his Christian duties, and he was really offended by that. And by then, he was like 64, and was given 8 months. So in my mind, 8 months is like not too much time. You could work with that. But it was still harrowing because I knew his health was failing, and Mile 2 is not a great place you want to send your daughter, anybody with failing health. And it was a long 8 months for the family. I was worried sick. Anytime I got a call from back home and I watched my phone, I thought, oh gosh, hope this is good news. But we came out of it. And my dad being my dad, the first thing he said when I said, welcome back, he said, it was an exciting experience. I'm like, oh God, here we go again. But that's my dad for you.
Sometimes it goes like every 3 months, barely, we expect that something will happen. Because he was arrested in 1997, 2001, 2004. Also, months also alternately, it happens. It does happen. You cannot count the number of times that he was victimized. And then the family was, it came at a point that the family became used to some of these things that when it happens, we see that something that it's normal. He goes like 3 months, 2 months without us having access to him.
As the Jammeh regime escalated its repression, UDP members were at risk in both their homes and in the street, and Ousainu's personal security was as important to the party as that of any other member. 2 Senegalese security experts were tasked to protect him.
Métti woon na trop definitely tough time lañ joxoon waaye ñun definitely suñ programme bi ñoo start ak Mr Darboe moo nekkoon di 96 elections waaw loolu moo nekkoon suñ programme ñu ne ni que nañ nekk ak moom bon liggéey ak moom for these elections after ñu seet nan la ñoo def waaye lii yàlla dogal after elections guddi googu noonu gars yi am luñ prepare woon against Mr Darboe pour jéem ko jël daal ci këram so bi ñu amee information boobu noonu ci lañu mooy boy remember mooy dugg bi Mr Darboe duggoon ci Senegalese embassy then at the time Senegalese embassy mi ngi taxaloo woon ak kër Mr Darboe bi nekk pipeline so mooy dugg boobu mu dugg foofu noonu so bi yàlla dogalee ñu dugg fexe ba mu dugg foofu throughout that period mi nga xamante ni mi ngi nekkoon absent dëgg-dëgg ci la ñu amaat beneen consciousness ci mbir mi ni lii dafa serious trop ñu gis how frail naka la méttee ci njaboot gi naka la méttee ci parti supporters yi.
liggéey bi yombul woon parce que ku xamoon Yaya Jammeh ni mu doon rouler Gambia da nga xam ne que liggéey bi métti surtout ma nekkoon gan nekk Sénégalais boo xam ne ko dama doon ñëw di liggéey foofu ak Loïda bi yore sécurité am kon du woon yomb am na benn côté boo xam tamit bon dinaa ni yombaay bi lu koy waral mooy lan parce que boo àndee un leader bu mel ni Ousainou Darboe nga xool engagement am nga xool bëgg-bëggam ak bëgg réewam ak dëggam ak bëgg dëggam nga xam ne ko vraiment kon liggéey bi boo xoolee ci moom ci à son âge da kon liggéey bi de mën nga ni courage lay nekk ci yow saa yu demee ba métti boo gestoo xool ko rek da ngay am courage waaw.
The regime's brutalities against UDP supporters continued unabated. In fact, Jammeh would often refer to them in derogatory terms and threaten to bury them.
Let me warn you, those evil vermin called opposition, if you want to destabilize this country, I will bury you 9 feet deep and no Westerner dare say anything. Let me make that very clear.
In the face of brutalities and provocation, Ousainou remained calm and had always asked his supporters to be law-abiding even when the atrocities were relentless. Whenever his militants suggested physical confrontation to defend themselves against the regime's heavy-handedness, he would opt for court action, respect for the rule of law. As a result, he was called a coward and a weak leader by his own people.
You cannot have a substitute for peaceful operation of political activities. Yeah. The only thing that you can do, especially when you are an advocate of constitutionalism, you just have to continue impressing on your supporters that what we have to do is to maintain peace and tranquility in the country. Otherwise, it's not going to be beneficial to anyone if the Gambia is put on fire.
He's a very calm person, and I don't remember a time that I've heard him raise his voice. Most of the time, I'll be sitting very close to him and I don't hear what he's saying because he's very soft and calm.
Mr. Darboe is a very shy man. He's very modest, but he has nerves of steel. Nothing can scare him. Don't see him His small stature, I would say, is the bravest of all brave men in this country. There's no doubt about that.
On Saturday, April 16, 2016, Ousainou would be pushed to take to the street finally, instead of going to the court to seek redress. It all started 2 days earlier when Solo Sandeng, UDP's national organizing secretary, and some party militants staged a peaceful protest at Westfield demanding for electoral reforms. A few moments into the protest, security agents arrested Solo and others and took them away. Friday evening, Ousainou received some disturbing news from an informant about Solo and colleagues.
Solo Sandeng and his guys were in detention, and Mr. Darboe received information that Solo was seriously, badly tortured, and that he died as a consequence overnight. Then he called, this was on a Friday night that he called me to say that, well, he had this information that Solo died in detention, and people like Fatoumata Jawara, Fatou Kamara, and some of these detainees were badly tortured and they are seriously suffering. So, and that Solo was secretly killed and buried at Tanje. He received that information.
Daf ma call mu ne ma Solo Sandeng rey nañ ko man maa ngi soloon lifin odo ni suma manaan ni di pare fii laa toog taalal suma tànkay suma yaram bi yëpp di lox mënumaa dem fen.
That evening, Fanta and Papadi were at my house because they had came for holiday. He called my line and said, Nakanja, Albe Munela, I was like, we jirinde kwari kaira. Nka molbe domoro wala. Nka munem Solo le banta. Nka banta nyadile. Iko ya fale. This was around 11 p.m.
I yama call ngaje yama bota telephone. She was crying. So ngani nikamune kera. Na kwenye ko baba ko Solo Sandeng yole torture fa fani to taje. So we all got into the vehicle into the pipeline ngataraje, and then we ngasuno jan nyakono. He was very painful to hear that news, and then so we all sat as a family. Nganyininka was going to be the next steps, what they were going to do as the party. So I go, they were thinking about it, and then Ousainou, they were supposed to have a executive meeting with the executive to decide what direction they were going to do. So we started asking him what was his personal thoughts of what he was going to do. So he started telling us his plans, and then we all agreed at that point Solo shouldn't have been tortured to death.
This executive committee meeting, and Dida decided that, well, we'll have to really go out the following day, the 16th, and ask for release of Solo Sandeng, dead or alive.
Somo suba keta fajiro, we got up, ayasaloke, ayala al-Quran karanke, and then eventually Solo, the family, came to the house early morning, close to 7 a.m. because they had news on social media. But he didn't want to confirm the Solo status at that time, so he wanted to follow due protocol kata alpha ya then kata suoko no cold and tema. So until Solo la muso na dimani Fatoumata Sandeng, I drove them back to their house and then came back to Pipeline. And then Bedim Baba Pereta, Manala Mold, then we went back and then he had all the elders that Animal Nyanta Talanu. Then we went back to Solo's home. Then I Kibado Dante Watolonte.
We are a family and we know how a father is important to a family. If Yajam is there sitting with his family, or whoever arrested my father, let him know that the father has his family. And how he is important to his family is how our father is important to us.
We came here and got white cloth. We were the ones that made the banner, Papadi and myself, and my Sise. I was typing the slogans that people were holding. Papadi was coloring in. He was sitting here coloring in. And he said, we need to get Gambian flags. So we went to Timbuktu We wanted the big ones, but we could not get it. We got every flag that was available at Timbuktu.
On Saturday, April 16th, Ousainou, surrounded by UDP executive members, held a press briefing in Pipeline to announce he and his officials were going out in protest to demand that Solo be handed over to them dead or alive, and the other detainees be released.
Bemenoma al solo dinna afuria wala balure fatmata warbula no gwanjanyol bula alemel aresaliye bula mbom nole kuma le funta malaf moy monen malaf moy ni mote ben siloka ya ko be woto ni bala bila malaf wala bitalo ne peaceful demonstration nimme yen soto jeto gambia le jareta nyala nata solo sifa dinding nata sifa Gambia. I ask all of you, it's going to be orderly. The leadership,
It wasn't something that I was prepared for. I was just calling him to check how he was doing, knowing that he's lost one of his militants. And then he just gave you this news, say, I've had the conference, but I'm going out to ask. I said, okay then, that's fine. We are behind you, Baba. Whatever you do. But it's like, after when I put the phone down, my whole body was shaking.
I could remember Lamin Diba when they called the meeting. He stood up. Why are we wasting time? If Solo has sacrificed his life, why should we wait? Let's all go out. There's nothing to discuss. Let's go.
Some of the family didn't want me personally to go out, but until I didn't care, and we all knew anything can happen. We can all end up, losing our lives that day. I remember I was newly married. I was 5 months married. When the Muso called the night before, Kafaiko, Samade, most likely never killer. People are gonna go out, and I don't see myself staying behind. I might most likely go, and I'm not sure what's gonna happen. But it will keda, and she'll be fine.
I am Papa di Kumandi. Nasolo dimbayal karafalma. That's what he said to us. Nasolo la dimbayal karafalma.
What he said was, I am going out. Whatever happened to me, my deputy will run the party. That was me. And he went out.
Release Solo! Release Solo Sunday, where you are alive. Release Solo Sunday, where you are alive. Release Solo Sunday, where you are alive.
The protest was quelled a few minutes after it started as armed security forces clamped down on Ousainou and colleagues and arrested them.
I knew Nafi was there. My other cousin was there. And there's another boy that my mom brought up. They were there, all three of them from my mom's house. They were all there. So I called Nafi direct. When I called Nafi direct, and then Nafi answered. And then she was like, Jojo, I can't find Keba. I said, what do you mean I can't find Keba? She said, and she was like, Jojo, they put in Baba in the truck. They put in, and she could see it. She was standing there on the phone. And the next minute, the phone just went off. It was off.
You continue be aga Elton, Keraba Avenue. So sila benen truck binyo. So mu wacha, guy wacha door di door niti. So sila daw, madam tes maloha papa bi manakane baba mu hol ma manakane bailen demonstration bi ni kanyu delu si kër bi balala guy di guy. Sila ma pusi gana mu hook Uncle Lamin la wala Uncle Femi. Munuma remember. So non la guy continue ñu dem. so ñu dem ba àgga fii nii bugg a romb Elton bi rek si la gaay dina door di leen dóor so ñoom oncle Lamine Diba ñoom oncle Femi ñu def ko si digga ñu soraan ko pour protect ko pour buñ ko gaay so foofu laa nekk di yuuxu di jooy di akati suma loxo bi fekk suma beneen brother alkaali tamit mu ngi taxaw suma gannaaw maa ngi ko ne alkaali ñu ngi dóor baaba ñu ngi koo gaañ so moom tamit xam naa ni ma doon yuuxoo noonu mu ngi ko doon disturb so mu jël ma mu dugal ma si office Global Properties bi so ma duga fa ma nekk di jooy di jooy.
When I was put on board the truck and taken to mile 2, forced without any court order, I knew that this is what I was destined for, and that as a politician, under that tyrant, under that dictator, I should expect that. I shouldn't expect my rights to be respected in any way. So psychologically, I was ready. The only time they nearly succeeded in breaking me down emotionally and psychologically was at the PRU, when I saw Fanta walk in. That really, Fanta Jawara. When I saw Fanta Jawara walk in, that really put me in a state.
How did I go to prison with him? Maybe only God knows. So, because Yama was there, Papadi and many others, I told them that I'm going to see my mother-in-law. So I sent someone to put gas in the car. Went to receive money from my husband. On my way back, that's how I got arrested. So.
I mean, she had wounds all over. I mean, her hands. I mean, her plate. I mean, the braided hair, was forcefully fucked up, and she was bleeding, and I was also bleeding. But then he came, sat by me, cuddled me, and then with a tissue, mopping my head, and said, "Baba, it will be okay." With that word, "Baba, it will be okay," that kind of surged my courage.
Ousainou and Co. were prosecuted for holding a demonstration without permit. Couple of weeks into their detention, they started looking malnourished, sick, largely as a result of poor food quality and bad conditions in prison. Each time they appeared in court in Banjul, in public, the health of especially Ousainou had deteriorated, sparking fear and anxiety in his family.
bés bi gaa ñëwee si code bi famille bi ñëpp a ko fiil famille si yëpp nekk foofu noonu waaye ba tey comme li ma la wax rek man maa jënoon a dégër gaay yaa ma jooy na fa ba soona su ma yaay jooy na ñoom na ni may ñëpp fiil nañ ko because of bi gaay ñëwee soo leen gisee dégga di nga xam ne gaay nekkuñ woon si jaama.
They look cachectic. That's what the medical term that we use, cachectic. They're so skinny, lost so much weight. And all you think about is malnutrition. Those are kind of the ways that people that have cancer look like, because their body, cancer is eating up their body, so they look cachectic. So you're worried that, they have electrolyte imbalance, lack of protein, and all of those can, lead to a whole bunch of different problems. You can have kidney issues, you can have heart issues from arrhythmias. And so as a medical practitioner, I'm thinking about all those things. One of these people can just drop dead, and die at any moment because of the malnutrition and the condition they were in.
It was very hard because I have grandchildren who couldn't understand. Why is he in prison? When is he coming home? And I couldn't explain that to them.
He's in mile 2. A place near Banjul, which has a lot of guards, and you have to be like above my age to visit there.
Do you know what happened to him?
Yes, I do.
You want to tell me?
No.
Why?
It's very emotional.
Do you miss him?
a lot.
When he was here, before he was taken to Mile 2, what do you usually do with him?
Like, he takes us out to different places, sometimes to his job, telling us how he does his job and all. He sometimes takes us out, like, to the beach to enjoy ourselves, and we spend time together. Yeah.
When you see him, what will you tell him?
I'm gonna tell him how much I missed him and how hard it was without him around.
But still, I put off a brave face. People will meet here when we are going to court. After court, they will all come and have lunch here.
Under Jammeh, the court system was set up to protect his interests. So-called mercenary judges were often imported to do his dirty work. On July 20th, 2016, Ousainou and his 18 colleagues were sentenced to 3 years in jail by a Nigerian judge, Justice E.O. Dada. They were sent to the maximum security wing of Mile 2, the most notorious section of one of the most notorious prisons in the sub-region.
The day I got sentenced, I said to myself, 3 years, 70 years old, in Mile 2, I think you're going to come out in a box. I gave up because I said to myself, Jammeh had vowed not to release them even when he won the election. So I said to myself, that's it. I don't think I'm going to see my dad alive again. And I gave up. So the only way he would have gotten released was if Jammeh had lost the election. And trust me, I had no hope in that. I had no hope at all. I said to myself, you know what? I said, my dad is going to die in jail.
Mayonnaise buckets. That's what we use. At night from 5 o'clock, that's what you use that for to pass your urine in. And if you have a running stomach, that is what you use. Almost 14 days, we are locked up. We go out only, for an hour. Go and have a bath and go back.
It's very sad. One of the days I met with late Femi Peters, we were so happy to see each other. So when we approached each other to take hands, the guards, prison guards said, no, you cannot talk to him. You cannot talk to each other. Simple discussion, they would not even allow us. And Ousainou, at one point we met at the family visit. He was receiving his family and I also came. So that's the time we had contact. But otherwise, they always want to isolate us from each other. They do not want us to communicate.
I didn't have a toilet. I didn't have a towel. And one Nigerian convict came to me and stood by and said, Uncle, I have a towel which I've never used. It's fresh. I also have toothbrush and toothpaste. The toothbrush is fresh. I've never used it. If you don't mind, I can give them to you. I said, thank you very much. So he gave me his towel and toothpaste. And when they allowed my family to bring in a towel and toothpaste and everything to me, I went to him and said, well, I have towel, I have toothpaste and everything, but this towel, can you allow me to keep it as a souvenir? And he agreed. So I have preserved it. It's still with me with the toothpaste, the soap, and the towel. I still have it. And even the cup, Ovaltine cup, which I was using when I want to drink water, pouring water in it, I have it. The pail, in which I look after myself, I also have it. They're all preserved.
When the judge made the judgment that the family can go visit, we tried to go visit. I'm telling lawyer Nene Cham that the 4 Mile 2 Bundato, and they said, well, even though the court gave the order, they had no order from the top, so they wouldn't let any family. So when because I know my dad was old at the time, I'm not sure if I was ever gonna see him again. So that was very emotional for me, and I started crying in the car. That was the toughest moment for me. But then once I got home, Ngokobe say Alabulu again. We just prayed and hoped for the best, and then hope justice would be served.
3 months after that, you could see him after they were convicted. That was difficult. I cried that day too, because he was in shorts and he was very small. So I think I went with Auntie Sally and Nanme, and actually not to even see him, because they allowed him only 2 or 3 visitors. So Auntie Sally, Nanme, and I think Binky Khadija too got in. So I put my name for Uncle Femi, to go see Uncle Femi, to see also how he was doing and whatever he needed. But I saw Ousainou there, and I just started crying. Then he sent me a note from Mile 2, and I still have that note. And he basically said, Nakanja, don't do this. You are my source of strength, and you are very strong. So if you cry, that means that not everything's okay. And I need you to be strong for me. Seeing you like that today was very upsetting. Please never do it again. Be strong for me. Yeah. So that was tough.
There was a nightmare along there was a smoke coming out, more electrical wire in the bone kanunje. So I ended up having an asthma attack. Where after a body tentable, it at that night. Yeah, ikai ko fanta fuila inhaler la. Then you inhale and you nati. Then after that, police officers kept on coming to rintala female wing into. That kongana check. To me mbelali njenka foko malong what was he going through? But that moment, mol bina kila bina dorong. No, I'm sure he is feeling something. Kafo kwa malong for as manying fa mbatandile fa bem falale at least kabiri molbe PIU nabe siri nyobalale abenje kanne mfanambaji kan, but this time you more separately amalong what I was going through personally ntangamira wala that would have been a hardest moment.
biñ demee ba ma gis Ousainou ak lifinam bi xam nga dafa bari caaxaan moom duy jël dara mu dal di taxaw dal di ne seet leen suma lifin bi naka la mel, suma kaala bi laa jël muur ko si suma kanam gi bugguma koo gis. Dama jooya ba mënuma téye suma bopp.
Later on, I was allowed to see them. I was very emotional, very much. But Darboe was still determined and told me, Ajam, don't cry. I cried, of course, I wept. Because it was sad to see him in prison, which we have never thought of, and it happened. To see him in such condition, the manner he was dressed.
Namna confinement to moy melore e usen samba confinement anala mulbe e ko entel samba musolbe dame ndunda konoto luwolo sira l'hôpital pour nga Ousainou je ndara lundo l'hôpital nga Ousainou taraje kar ko be muka sato muka bayno nga Ousainou taraje to yentel dunde sira lo kono ye Ousainou sandi sanjo koto peran koto fenkete je sanjo be kilayka ngamira nin kumbote nyako be yabulal ntara jonkon kono ko leftara jonkon to nkumbota fo jonkon kono ngamira Ousainou la ndara jonkon kono kumbota barin ko yarmadi imantambi kula nga nyafita.
Ousainou and co didn't serve the 3 years in jail. In December 2016, Adama Barrow won the presidential election under the opposition coalition ticket against Jammeh, sparking wild celebrations across the country. The people had won against dictatorship. On December 5th, Ousainou and his colleagues were released from prison. They were received by family and supporters at a parked courtroom in Banjul.
Let me congratulate the Gambians for taking a historic decision, a decision to change the government, a decision that will affect the destiny and the future of this country. It's a very bold decision, and it's a decision that was taken in anticipation that the best will be done for this country. The Gambians have spoken, and and they have spoken without any ambiguity.
For Jammeh to lose the election, my dad to get released. If you watch the pictures of my dad when he got released, just watch the pictures. He was all bones. You're talking about a 6'2", over 200-pound guy. The guy looks skinnier than me, and I'm not skinny. He was all bones, and that was just 8 months of the year. Imagine if he had to go 3 years of that. He wasn't going to survive it. So I thank the Gambian people, really, for giving my dad back, because I really owe them my dad. Because if they had not voted out Jammeh, my dad would have died in prison. He wouldn't have had the decent burial he had. So this is the platform I'm going to use to say, Gambian people, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for giving my dad back and for giving us the chance as a family to spend at least the remaining time he had since he got released. He had the chance to go be ambassador in Sierra Leone, the birth of his parents, some country, his heritage, and then to die at the service of this country, and then for us to bury him in a decent way. The Gambian people, I want to say thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I'm indebted to you guys. That was the best thing you guys did for me, giving back my dad. I appreciate that. Thank you, Gambians. Thank you very much.
I, Honorable Abubakar Numukunda Mbaro Ousainou Darboe, do swear that I will execute the functions of the Office of Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Ousainou was appointed Foreign Minister in February 2017 in the new government and then Vice President in June 2018. He was relieved of his cabinet appointment on the 15th of March 2019 after falling out with President Barrow, his former protege. But his legacy remained.
I've taken Gambia out of international isolation, and of course, I have also sold Gambia's national development plan to the world. Together with my young brother, my colleague, Ahmad Sani, I have done that. All these things that are talking about OIC and so forth and so on. Myself as foreign minister, I crisscrossed the world with my chief executive, Lamin Sani.
All the funding, the preparatory work, he became vice president, chairman of the board. So he was leading and giving me directions of how we approach certain things, even the roads that we were treated together. And he came up with some very ideas about that Burufu to Ghana Town Ring Road that is part of the approved projects we're going to. He was very clear on those things that this should happen. It should happen. Even this Battle Heidi Kairaba Avenue, we need to change it because it's the main high street in Gambia. Why can't we think about how to improve it? So we went on those negotiations. He was behind, supporting me on the legal side, and I was focusing on the finance side with my OIC colleagues at the secretariat. And I went and negotiated the funding for the projects. The 98 million was virtually granted under his chairmanship. He was the chairman. But the signing, he was removed before we finalized the agreement here. Then he was removed as vice president. So virtually the OIC, for me, in the system, it was the foreign ministry with the help of Alaji Sise, chief of protocol, and Ousainou Darboe, who made it a reality.
It was a real chance for Gambia to come out again with the change. And Ousainou was a catalyst. I didn't attend the Commonwealth Conference in UK, but he went there with other ministers to put Gambia's case. The Gambia was readmitted into the Commonwealth. We also went back to the ICC, and we opened up diplomatic relations with a lot of other countries now that are holding back on the Gambia's diplomatic front. So he achieved a lot in that aspect. Then with China, he forged a very good, close relationship, and he was able to secure the assistance from the Chinese government for these URR roads and the bridges. It was his initiative. We went together also to the Brussels May 2018 Donors Conference, and he played a critical role in that. And after the conference, we did not come back with the President Adama Barrow. We took a train, a high-speed train to Paris to meet with the government officials there, Agence Français, their development wing, who promised us, some, investments in agriculture. And you can see URR, they started there. That's our initiative there. They also gave us 50 million euro as budget support.
He came to Nigeria on an official mission with the former vice president when he was foreign minister. We met and had series of discussions about the Gambia, and I saw from him, his desire to support Gambia, even at his own expense, so that Gambia goes out of the, negativities that, will have been, developed over the earlier 21 years or 22 years.
He wanted, the government to succeed. He wanted, especially Adam Barrow, actually. He wanted Adam Barrow to succeed. So my private conversations with him is like, that's what it is. I'm sure he knows, how Ousainou feels about him.
Though Ousainou has since been dedicating most of his time to politics and the affairs of the UDP in particular, there are many success stories in the Gambian jurisprudence today that anybody can look back and say, thank God for lawyer Ousainou Darboe.
What I find very interesting about his contribution is this determination to get to the last level of our court system to prove points. And those points have become, as we say, locus classicus in terms of making referral or reference to those cases. A case in point is the case of Sar and others versus Juara, which was a case about the market, this weekly market called Lumo in Brikama. When the VDC of Brikama wanted to collect the rates and the daily tax from the market, and the governor stopped them. So Ousainou went to court on behalf of the community to assert the community's right to collect rates. Unfortunately, the case did not turn, favorable to them. But out of the case, some very good precedents were laid. It was able to determine the right of the Alcalo in the village, because then the Alcalo of Brikama had three powers: power to collect rate, power to represent government in the village, but also to collect other rates different from the market rates. So the court was able to differentiate these three powers, and then the power to collect rates was then transferred to the area council, which became the precedent. Now area councils are collecting rates, and I'm sure through GRA also.
With an amazing grasp of the Constitution, Ousainou was renowned for his tirelessness and meticulousness in the quest to get to the bottom of cases he believed needed settling once and for all.
This is a person who would say, let's go to the next court for two things: either to prove his point, but also for the case to settle some legal doubts. And through Ousainou, so many doubts have been settled. I am sure the famous case that everybody knows him for, and he has participated, which produced very good legal principles, is the case of Fatou Badji versus Joseph Bassen. The case that came out from the old Joswang. It was about Sinana rice fields. That case settled our land issues. It was able to prove that in the Gambia there are 5 ways to prove a land. And that case is now the most cited case for proving land in the country. And Ousainou did that. And when I spoke to him about that, he said, I did not start that case. So he took the case from the appeal court level, and they lost. He said, no, I still believe that the issues are not settled. And he proceeded to the Supreme Court. And now, in the Gambia, you know how to prove title to land.
In every sphere and aspect of the law, Darboe's contribution is there. In about 1983-84, during the Senegambian Confederation, some terrible incidents happened in the Fonyis, Sintet, Mayok, Arankonkunda, Kamfenda, and other villages. The Senegalese, led by some Gambians, went to those villages and collected the village heads and elders and would take them to the bantabas to be very, very badly humiliated and tortured. Now, I know one person, Boto Jaju from Sintet. He came and saw me and said, look, we cannot have this. These people, these are our elders. How can we allow this thing to happen? And Mr. Dawan, I said, look, we have to take them to court. We sued the government, South Africa's government. That case took a long time. It was done pro bono.
The case of Manson Dambele, who comes from my village of Lights. That case was important because people go to court for various reasons, especially businesses. And businesses who have suffered or that have suffered lost would want to recover through damages. So the case now is the case most cited for specific and general damages, how to prove specific and general damages. So it was through Ousainu's tenacity and belief in the court system, especially believe in the appeal process, that the Supreme Court of the Gambia in Manson Dambele versus West African Examination Council, that the court was able to determine what constitute specific and general damages.
In all his career as a lawyer, Ousainou would go at any length to help promote the application of the law for justice, even if that means empowering the opposition lawyer. His approach to the legal process is one of his credentials that place him on top.
I was on the bench as a magistrate. There was a case I was presiding, I won't tell you the case, and the lawyer on the other side. But all of a sudden, Ousainou rose to say, and the lawyer said, no, I'm speaking. Normally when one is up, the other one should sit down. Then when he rose, he said, no, I'm speaking. He said, no, listen to me first. Then he gave that lawyer 5 cases, names of 5 cases, and the rulings, the ratio decidendi, for the lawyer to use against him. Not many lawyers can do that. Because after all, I think this is the philosophy of Ousainou. It's not about winning cases. It's about presenting the facts and applying the law for justice to be arrived at by the court. And that's the duty of a lawyer to court, is to aid the court, but also aid the parties to arrive at the just decision. So that's lawyer for Ousainou Darboe for you.
What attract people to Ousainou include his humility and selflessness, always willing to put the people first. He has always risen above the confines of himself.
Ousainou mumo nation killing walati, among kuloro fula soto, ala fengo, anim mobile kanyandaji. Nsavoye, Ousainou la hinantea, nga Ousainou la je nin kome misal fa tele be sirin jambe sirin damen bi. Mobe tambila ayamoy woka memfo wala ma bulole manketa. Ni yalon iba sutira de saja ni jo falenta kome mbota borola domande. Akakete, ake ni jiten. Sai nga wodula to ala problemo be momenti wala mu nata balaje wota ba sotola la tabita mendi la wala karala. Ousainou mu loyalty a darjata la loyayato anyanta kodo men sotola ma soto. Hinante ya kamal.
I don't think he has any bad, bone in him. I think he's one of the most forgiving people. I have seen people turn their backs on him and he takes care of their families. After they're dead, their families come back to him.
Anata fanang namuso fanan ni kafutema mbeke ta sikiri kili we sanje jamabo akadokula mtakuma fam bao salwatu salin wati nasita jam isala kale o men sanga fam ya kawlo san tulbe salwatu salin nasita jam misala ba salba yo men sanga fam ya kawlo san tulbe mangi liggey fi simo tambo bo do halat ne ya jame dafa ñew to ci dekk bi papi mun na la wax ne man si suma boppa si loo xam bi la magee liggéey na ak paa bi amut jafe-jafe boo xam ne musuma xëy na benn bis mu mere ma mu defaat ma lu bon nit ki danga wax sa diggante ak yàlla loolu amut
Ousainou has been a pillar of truth all his life, in the courtroom, in public office, or on the political podium. He has always defended the truth and protected the common good.
Ousainou is somebody who is incorruptible. You cannot corrupt Ousainou just because exactly, you want, to gain something which you are not entitled to gain. He will tell you simply, this is just not on. His friends all know him as that.
I'm being a case. If I'm being how to call it, being a gal buñ fi season yéena lifin xarab moo sa nationality ñu ñëw mu am ku leen boole moom ñu ñëw maa ngi fàttaliku case boobu noonu bi moo prepare documents bés boobu noonu suba ba after 9 ci guddi ñu ci office bi moo prepare file client ba ñëw rek ndeke daf ko ne ko am na ku ko wax ne ko su ko joxee xaw ma ñaata mu jox ko judge bi den dinañ bàyyi gaal bi mu dem comme like wax nañ ko ne mun naa jox lawyer bi dara mu jox ko judge bi comme bribe judge bi loolu naxari ko ma daal ma toog rek dañ xëy ñu mu ne ma prepare ma notice of discontinuance ma ne ko si ban case mu joxoon ma lii bi ma ne ko xanaa lawyer mu ne ma prepare ma li nga yóbbu ko nga dem liyal ma ko ba pare naa la explain nii ndeke kooku mu ne ma kii di ma waxi ne pour dem bribe judge man ma dama dellu case bi lim ma jot a jox sax dama ko dellu génn si case boobu noonu ba 7 weeks.
When he was chairman of the board of the OIC, there were several times some of the board members who are state ministers who will say they want a review of the board allowances that was paid. Some were even pushing to be paid in dollars at the board meeting, and I was, no, I would not do it. It will not happen under my watch as a CEO. And that was said, never. And considering that we had forced review of the allowances from sitting to monthly, and some were pushing to be paid a lot of money because of the numbers we're discussing. And he hit the table. He went to town and pretended to walk away. He stood up and said, if that's what I'm out of this meeting. Several times in those meetings, he made it very clear. It's not about how much we as board members collect in allowances in travel. No. This is about the country. How can the people benefit from this project? That was what is important. Not how much we collect as certain allowances. Look, we traveled to Indonesia to meet the president for support for the OIC. He was vice president. We flew in on Sunday morning. That was the day of the World Cup, France and Croatia, I think, if my recollection is right, the last World Cup final. We met the president the vice president on Monday. They received us, we had the presenters, we had lunch, everything. There was a flight at 11 o'clock at night. And I went to see him, I said, there's a flight tonight, because we were scheduled to leave on Wednesday and get here on Friday. I said to him, look, why are we staying here? He said to me, there's a flight. I said, these people didn't reach. I said, well, this is what I just discovered from my office, because I was always checking. For me, after the meetings, I look for the nearest flight out. They told me, let's go. Let's go home. So we flew back that day. And he came back on Wednesday, went to work.
It is because of such attributes that today, Ousainou, the politician, summoned a tidal wave of support from people yearning for change. Under him, UDP has become a mass movement for democracy, justice, and